On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr. Donna. Hey, good evening, everyone. Guess what tonight is? It is the final episode of 2023 for Talking with Dr. Donna. Woo! Before we get started, I have to thank my team. We just had a little team powwow, but I just want to thank my team because there's absolutely no way that I could do this, especially for 4 seasons, without my team. So I want to say thank you to Elwood on the cameras, Donnell on the slides, to Elisita who makes the slides, to Sister Bridget who is on the chat, to Annette, who does a lot of background work, and Brother Owen, who kind of keeps us all in line together with production. So give a clap in the chat to the team, and know that I love and appreciate each and every one of you. All right, so welcome to your appointment. Thank you for keeping your appointment tonight. You know you have an appointment every Thursday with the doctor. Our goal here on Talking with Dr. Donna is to build a generational health network. And that network is going to be created. We're creating each and every one of you when you keep your appointment every Thursday as a part of the network. And we have created this network to help end the cycle of premature death in Black communities across in America and across the diaspora. And we do that by paying attention to 4 pillars of health. And you might say, well, Dr. Donna, generational health, 4 pillars, what does all of that mean? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. I'm glad that you're curious. So if you want to know what I'm talking about with Generational Health Network, watch this short video. There are 4 pillars to generational health. The first is emotional and mental health. So we talk about the connection between the mind, the body, it's all connected. The second pillar is spiritual health. That is also talking about the connection of the spirit to our bodies, how we feel, and understanding that there is a higher power. And studies show if you believe that there is a higher power, whatever you call that higher power, this is not about religion. It's about the connection to the spirit within each and every one of us. The third pillar is physical health. The fourth pillar is environmental health, and that really focuses in on the importance of our air, the soil, the places where we live, and how that impacts our health. Those are the 4 pillars of generational health, and I'm building a network of organizations and people to help build up each of those pillars, and that end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. No one talks about generational health, the impact that health decisions are made as a child, how in this generation then impacts the next generation. Diabetes passed from mom to child to their child, high blood pressure, cancer. I mean, all of these diseases are generational. I can get them, right? Because all of our genes are either turned on to create disease or turned off. And if I make a change in my dietary habits in particular, because that's probably the biggest place, generational health is important that we start with our children because they have the ability to turn that off so that the next successive generations can be on a path of wellness. Then they can make a change for the next 4 generations. All right, that's what Generational Health Network is about. That's what we are about here on Talking with Dr. Donna. And I thank you for being a part of this for the last 4 years. We did such a quick pivot. The reason we started was as we were giving information around COVID, and we have just grown into where we are today, which is really trying to provide information to you around those 4 pillars to once again end the cycle of premature death in our community. So you can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. We'll still be active on those sites even while we're on a bit of a break. So please do make sure you stay connected with us, and let me know what you might want to hear about in our next season. Again, if this is your first time joining us, you know that we're live. We are live, which means that you can ask a question. So as we do the presentation and information tonight, if you have a question, you can leave it in the chat and we will see it and try to get that question answered for you. So tonight we have some great guests, 2 guests, and we're talking about emergency preparation. And if you think back, I think about a month ago, maybe we did a show on how to prepare an emergency kit. And you might be saying, well, how does this fit in with health? Why do we need to know about emergencies? Because emergencies are bound to happen, as you're going to hear. And we want to make sure that you are absolutely prepared so that your loved ones, you and your loved ones, will be able to make it through any type of emergency. So tonight, I'm really excited that we have 2 members to come from the City of Oakland Emergency Management Services to come in to talk to us about how to be prepared and what does that look like. So get your questions ready, get your notes ready, get your pen and pad, because you're going to be able to take notes and really, really make sure that you, your family, and your loved ones are prepared. Now remember, when you keep your appointment with your doctor, there's just 2 things that your doctor asks. We don't charge you for this visit, but we do have an ask. So 2 different asks. The first ask is that you share this information. So anything that you find useful, share with your family, your friends, and your loved ones. And the second ask is, if you are not already a subscriber to Talking with Dr. Donna, go to the YouTube, Talking with Dr. Donna, subscribe, and then hit that bell icon so that you know when we go live. All right? All right, let's bring our guests out. I want to say thank you and welcome to Talking with Dr. Donna. To first, Brianna Horton, who is an emergency program coordinator, right, for the City of Oakland's Emergency Management Services Division. And to Kyle Tramble, who is the senior program coordinator for the City of Oakland's Emergency Management Services. So let's welcome Kyle and Brianna to Talking with Dr. Donna. Good evening. Hi. Hi. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. I know that you have a presentation for us tonight, which I'm really excited to hear about. And I'm going to just turn it over to you for you all to start your presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're both really excited to be here. As you already stated, my name is Brianna Horton. I'm an emergency planning coordinator. I support with some of the community preparedness programs that we have here in the city. And then I'm joined tonight by Kyle, my colleague. He's a senior emergency planning coordinator in our division. And together we're representing Oakland's emergency management services team. So with that, Kyle's going to get us kicked off. He'll run through our agenda, and then he'll just start our presentation for tonight. And then I'll finish us out, and we hope to answer any questions that you have.
Excellent. Thank you all. My name is Kyle Trombley. So working with the City of Oakland in the Emergency Management Services Division is a wonderful honor because I get to work with people and teach them how to prepare for emergencies all year long. Tonight, we are going to be talking about personal emergency preparedness. This is normally a 90-minute course that we teach in the City of Oakland. A lot of cities, counties have similar programs that they teach out in the community. But we're going to distill a lot of that information down into a really quick format and try to provide you some information, whether you live in Oakland, San Jose, Santa Cruz, San Rafael, anywhere in the Bay, try to get you some information that will help you prepare for emergencies so that when disaster does strike, You are ready and you are not another victim. So if we have that slide deck on the agenda tonight, we are going to talk about the local hazards. We talk about the hazards in Oakland, but in the Bay Area, most of our hazards are pretty similar. There are some spot hazards like dam inundation, but we are just going to talk about those general hazards, talk about how you can hear about emergencies when they happen, trainings that may be available in wherever you live, or if you live in the city of Oakland, what we have to offer, and then give you some preparedness tips. I know you all learned about how to pack a bag, but go a step further and learn about the concept of mitigation, how you can make your home safer a little bit so that when disasters strike, the damage is not quite as severe. So if we can go to that next slide. Beautiful. And then finally, we're going to cover a little bit of the basics on how to actually plan that kit, build that kit, both to get out of the house and evacuate quickly, and how to stay at home when you build a kit to stay home. So if we go to the next slide, the Emergency Management Services Division is in the Oakland Fire Department. So wherever you are, this might be a little different. I know in Contra Costa County, it's housed within the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department. Various cities may have it in different departments, or if you're in the city county of San Francisco, it's its own department altogether. However, it's organized cities, people working on planning for emergencies in some way, shape, or form. As you can see, we're our own little division right underneath the fire chief. We are not sworn firefighters. We are working on planning and making sure that when emergencies do happen, we know how to coordinate with all of those sworn members of the fire department, the police department, and all of the divisions within the city of Oakland and our federal and state counterparts to make sure that we're able to coordinate. We can go to that next slide. So this is our mission statement and talking about what we do. Some cities may not have as robust a team as we do. We have a stunning team of 7 people working for the city of Oakland. Some cities may not have that, but at the county level, there are people that are working towards that. So make sure that if you're looking and researching who is working on your emergency planning for your city or county, start at the city level, see what happens, and then move up towards that county. The county level is where they're definitely working on something. As someone that used to work at the state level, we worked very closely with all the counties to make sure that they're up to date on all of their plans. Speaking of plans, if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the local hazards and plans that you might face. So local hazards, we're going to cover a little bit about what you might see during an emergency, some of those things that are prevalent to our communities, and then talk about the plans. So from my perspective, unfortunately, I can only really talk about the City of Oakland's plans and a little bit about the County of Alameda's plans. However, these are all standard terms. Everything that we're talking about tonight is standardized across the entire country, in fact. A lot of these programs, they started here within the state of California, given our history of major emergencies going back to the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. But all of these things are standardized. So wherever you're listening to us from tonight, listen to those key words and you can find out how it's being planned in your community. So on the next slide, we're talking about hazards. So these are the things that we're going to be focusing on throughout the Bay Area. We all know that we live in an earthquake zone, and if you don't, I'm sorry to break the news to you tonight. Earthquakes are going to be a major hazard to us, no matter where you are in the Bay Area. The Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989 was about 50 miles south of Santa Cruz, and it impacted the Bay Area so much that we saw the Cypress Freeway collapse and incredible catastrophic damage as far north as Santa Rosa. So thinking about that and knowing that we have active faults running right underneath our cities, this is something that we need to prepare for. But it's not the only thing. Every year we see the skies darken. I'm going to say that we didn't see it this last year, but knock on wood, we get another clear year. But we see our skies darken with smoke. We know wildfires are a big risk. We're still coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are dams stationed all around the Bay Area that we need to make sure that if they do fail or something happens to them, we have the response capacity to save people. So these are the hazards that we face, and this is not unique to the city of Oakland. This is what we all face. And what I like to tell people is that it really doesn't matter what disaster you're preparing for. As long as you are preparing for disasters, you're doing it right. It doesn't matter the cause. There are simple steps that we're going to talk about tonight that you can take to make sure that you're prepared for any of these. All right, next slide. Here's that first word that I was talking about. So when we're talking about common language or common things, a local hazard mitigation plan. So you can scan this, you can go to this link, and this actually takes you to the City of Oakland's local hazard mitigation plan and how you can learn about the hazards underneath any single address in the City of Oakland. All of this information is based off of federal sources, so it's very likely that in your jurisdiction, your city, your county, they have done something similar. And you can even get this information from the Federal Emergency Management Agency if you're interested. But generally, it's hyper-localized, and it'll give you specific information on where there are hazards in your community, whether that be flood, fire, earthquake, trying to identify where those hot spots are going to be so that we can conduct mitigating actions before there's an emergency. What is mitigation? Mitigation is the process of preparing for an emergency and making sure that things are not damaged as much during a disaster, even though we know they're going to be damaged. So if you've ever heard of a bolt and brace program, or even if you're talking about just staging your house so that you have a clear path of exit, that's mitigation, making sure that you are safe when there's an emergency. Next slide. The Emergency Operations Plan is how governments respond to emergencies. If you go to our website and you look through our EOP, it may look like a dry read, a boring read. Every single city, every single county has one of these plans. And this is how the departments and the agencies are built to respond to these. We have different things called emergency support functions and hazard-specific annexes that we can add on to this plan to make sure that we're prepared specifically for different things like earthquakes and make sure that we know who is responsible for every function. But that emergency operations plan is really important, not just for us working for the city or a government, but also for you, because it teaches you how we actually respond to an emergency. I know us in the City of Oakland, we are constantly working, trying to find members of the public that we can talk to about this, only so we can get their feedback, because when we're preparing for things, we're not going to have a full picture. We are not going to know what is best for everybody. So we need to get public input whenever we're developing, redeveloping, and revalidating these programs so that we know that we are doing a halfway decent job of preparing for other people. So if you search anywhere for emergency operations plan with your city or county, you're sure to find some results. Or if you go to our Ready Oakland website or our Oakland website, you'll see our base plan, emergency support functions. All of this is laid out as clear as possible for folks. On this next slide, you're going to see just a little bit. You can look city county name plus emergency operations plan, local hazard mitigation plan, or the city county name for the Office of Emergency Services, Department of Emergency Management. Unfortunately, there is a lot of different names out there for departments like ours. We are, the California state is the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, or OES. DEM, Department of Emergency Management, is San Francisco. It varies city to city, county to county, but if you put in emergency management and your city or county name, you will find out who is representing you at that government level. But you might be wondering to yourself, so we're doing all this planning, we're writing all of these documents. How do you know that there's been an emergency unless you can feel the shaking or see the fire? Well, on the next slide, we're gonna talk about that a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do in the City of Oakland and the County of Alameda. It's going to vary county to county, city to city. But there are methods that we can utilize not just as a city or county, but as a region to reach out to folks. So when we hit those regional catastrophic emergencies, we can make sure that everybody in an area receives an emergency message, or as targeted as down to a city block can receive a message. And it matters how you sign up for that or if you have the correct settings enabled. So on that next slide, these are the systems that we use in the City of Oakland and the County of Alameda. So acalert.org is AC Alert. is how we are able to push out information, not only to the public, but we use it internally to reach out to staff during emergencies as well. You can register your home address, your work address, make sure that you're registering information so that if we find out there's an emergency, whether it be an earthquake, a wildfire, a flood, active shooter event, we can select the area that you are and make sure to push out an emergency message that's relevant to where you are or where you care about. And that's really important because it's not just about where you are, is it? We go to work every day. We're at home some hours. You want to know about those areas or know if you're going into a place that might be dangerous. So for us, that's AC Alert. Different counties use different tools. Most of these are based off of what is called the Everbridge platform. But if you look at your county level, so if you're Contra Costa County or if you are Santa Clara County, and you search for that county name plus emergency alerts, it'll most likely bring up what they're using. I'm sure you've all heard of the presidential emergency management system. We had those tests coming through a year and a half back. That is a part of the wireless emergency alert or WEA system, and that's a different system. So AC Alert, you need to sign up for, and that's the easiest way for us to get information out because you've signed up to receive that information. We can push those out relatively easily. A WEA alert or a wireless emergency alert is a little bit more difficult and requires a little bit more work on our end to get out because that's what's called an opt-out network. You have to specifically go into your phone and turn off those wireless emergency alerts or those I'm sorry, I forget the other alerts that are in there, but the wireless emergency alerts, you have to physically go into your phone and turn those off. So for us to send out those alerts is a little bit more complex. So from our jurisdiction, and I know other counties and cities are the same, we really want you to sign up for these opt-in networks because it makes it a lot easier for us to push out not just the direst of emergency scenarios, but also provide you key information of when there may be potential hazards in your neighborhood, your workplace, or where your loved ones are. The next thing down there is called Zone Haven. If you're in the Bay Area, good news is, except for the city, county of San Francisco right now, everybody uses Zone Haven. They're in the middle of a rebrand to Genesis Protect, but it's the same system. And so what this does, it has divided up the entire county of Alameda and all of the other counties at this point into small little jurisdictions. And what that does is allows us to, when we're planning for an evacuation or a targeted messaging due to an emergency, a fire, active shooter, what have you, we're able to divide up into what are called zones. And so if you go to that community.zonehaven.com, even though the name is changing, those links still work. That will take you to a system where you're able to input your address and it'll give you a zone number. The county of Santa Clara is currently installing this system and dividing the system. So if you are in San Jose proper, you may not be able to get it quite yet, but it is coming within the next couple of months. But anyone else in the Bay Area except the city county of San Francisco is able to put their address in and you're going to get a zone number. When we are sending out alerts, we are doing it by that zone. Now, we're always going to say it's south of this road, north of this road, east, west, and try to provide a good geographic boundary in descriptive terms. But the easiest and most effective way that you can know to evacuate is by seeing that zone number really, really quickly and either having it written down on the fridge, having it memorized, what have you, and being able to know that is where you are or that is where your loved ones are. There are other different types of alerts in your community as well. A lot of communities have what are called Nixle alerts, which is as a simple text in your zip code to a number, and then you're on a list. They are being phased out in a lot of communities. I know Sonoma and Santa Rosa have recently phased them out, and other communities have well. They're very, very general, so the best we can do is a message to an entire zip code, which is not a very targeted system for getting messages out to an opt-in network. But a lot of communities do have those Nixle alerts. And if you search for your city or county and your emergency alerts, they will list precisely what they have. Every community is able to receive NOAA weather radio. You do need to purchase a special radio. You can hop on Amazon, go to any Ace Hardware, Home Depot, local hardware store you can find, and they'll have weather radios. I have mine right here. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like an old school 90s, early 2000s radio. What this is connected to very broad waves. And during an emergency, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration will be able to broadcast up-to-date emergency and disaster information, whether that's weather updates or information on where aid will be. That is one of those systems that is designed to work when everything else has failed. And then finally, most communities in the Bay Area have what's called an emergency siren system. Look up what yours is. Likely there is a siren test that will go off at least once a month. Learn what it is. Listen for those sirens and make sure that you know that there are different tones that they put out, because that could be your first alert that something has gone wrong in your community. The next slide is actually talking about Zone Haven. I already talked about that, but it's a really good little descriptor of what those actual zones look like. Oh, signal issues. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you were breaking up for a minute, but we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
I wonder if it was my weather radio.
Oh, maybe.
They are relatively powerful. Did you lose any information?
No.
Okay. So if we can advance to the next slide. I already talked about Zone Haven, but this is what the mapping system looks like. Communities do it a little bit different. I know that Santa Clara has their schools and campuses broken into independent zones. Everyone's decided to map it a little bit different, but the formatting of everything looks the same. I know that I'm in OKL-E159. Knowing that will help me during an emergency. So make sure you go to that community.zonehaven.com, check your zone, know that their branding is changing to Genesis Protect. It's the same thing, but those links will last for quite a while after. And the last thing I want to just leave you with before I turn you over to my colleague Brianna is make sure that you're looking up what your city, what your county is doing for these plans. Everyone does things a little bit different, but they all should be following the same standards. And the most important thing that I'll tell you as someone that works in the city of Oakland and is working on these plans day in, day out, is that we want to hear from you. If you read our plans, if you look at our documents, if there is something that looks wrong to you, that you think could be better, we want to hear about it so that as we're building these things, as we're expanding, as we're working on our community outreach, we're better able to serve the public. So don't keep your opinions to yourself. Let us know, and research what's going on in your own community. And with that, I want to turn over to the next slide to my colleague Brianna, who's going to talk a little bit about preparedness and the trainings that we as the City of Oakland offer, and you might be able to find in your own community.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kyle. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Awesome. So as Kyle said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about emergency preparedness and response training that we have and how that can help you get ready. So if you'll go ahead and advance to the next slide, I'll give you some two courses actually that are our favorites. They are the most robust trainings that we have, and we get a lot of people who come through to train with us throughout the year. The first one that we offer here in the city of Oakland is called Personal Emergency Preparedness Training. Those are your basics. Kyle opened it up and let you know that this is actually a 90-minute training. And so this is a very condensed version. The slides that you've already seen are slides that we go over in this personal emergency preparedness training. I'm going to call it PEP from here on out. But we talk about this in much more detail. So this is just a training that I really recommend to anybody, especially if you're just starting your preparedness journey. If you really don't know what to do first, this is a great introductory course for that. After that, hopefully you have learned so much and you want to take a little bit more action. And you're also looking for ways to maybe support your neighbors or your community at large. And with that, after you've taken this PEP training, we recommend that you try to take CERT training. CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Team Training. And two things that I really love about CERT training are the concepts of community organization that it instills very early on in the curriculum. It gives you a lot of tips on how to organize your neighbors just to tackle some of these really complex issues. That way you don't feel like you're going at it alone. And then the second thing that I really like about CERT training is that it's a nationwide program. CERT training is actually a curriculum that was was developed by FEMA. There's a history there. Kyle kind of talked about it. Started with some earthquakes back in the day. And, you know, the first responders realizing that they're really going to need volunteers to not only be able to help themselves, but in some of these incidents that, you know, exceed our capacity as first responders, we're going to need volunteers to step up and help other members of the community as well. And so CERT training is a great way to do that because of that consistency. Just like what Kyle was saying with the local hazard mitigation plan and the emergency operations plan, every jurisdiction has something similar, if not the same. And so CERT is one of those things. As a community preparedness and response training program, it's a very valuable tool if you are active in multiple communities or multiple jurisdictions, or if you plan to make a move in the future and you want to get plugged into your new neighborhood. You know, you could go to community councils, or you could sign up for your local CERT team and kind of get ingrained that way. So on the next slide, I'll go ahead and give you some tips about household preparedness. These might be things that you've already heard, but just little things that you can do around your own home just to make yourself a little bit safer and more secure. Next slide, please. So some of the heavy furniture that we have in our homes can actually hurt us if it gets disrupted or falls over in an earthquake. There could be other, you know, incidents that might cause heavy furniture to fall on us. But one of the biggest things that you can do just to kind of mitigate against that is to secure or anchor any of that furniture to the wall if you can. In California, I think there are a significant number of major retailers who actually include, you know, fasteners and straps and extra bolts and things like that, so that when you're setting up your new furniture in your home, you can just go ahead and anchor it at that time. Other things that you can do are to childproof cabinet doors. If anyone's had a home with toddlers, you might find yourself, you know, pushing cabinets or trying to open them only to get a little bit of pushback because they're actually getting stuck because you haven't pushed that lever down. That is a great way to keep cabinets closed when all of the shaking is going on in an earthquake, to keep some of that china from falling out and breaking on the floor, causing you to maybe step on it and create some extra injuries for yourself as you're trying to evacuate. So that's a really helpful thing that you can do, and it's really easy. Your local hardware store should have some, you know, cabinet secure fasteners, and you can just install those really quickly. Other things are to make sure that you know where your utilities are and how to shut them off, and knowing also which utilities are okay to turn back on by yourself. So you should locate your electrical panel and know how to reset any circuit breakers. If you have an older home and you're using fuses, maybe having a couple of extra fuses handy in case one of those blows. Labeling each one so that as you're trying to systematically restore power to your home, you know where you're trying to test those things instead of just flipping every single switch. And then also knowing where your gas meter is. If you live in an apartment, this could look different from you versus, you know, how it looks for homeowners. Sometimes in apartments, some of these utilities you actually can't access, but there's never anything wrong with contacting your building owner or your facilities manager just to kind of ask where those things are and if they have a plan to shut those utilities off, or if you can have access to it in the event of an emergency. And so one thing I will want to note is, again, with gas, that's something that you can turn off by yourself, but you cannot turn it back on. You do need to, in California, you need to call a PG&E or, you know, your power professional to restore the gas once you've decided to turn it off. But we recommend turning it off because of aftershocks, specifically in an earthquake, and the risk for secondary explosions that might come. So that's something that we recommend. And then water shutoffs, again, just knowing how to turn things on and turn them back off. Or if you have to rely on a neighbor, if you know where they are, you can at least ask your neighbor to help you do that. Securing water heaters and making sure that they have flexible gas lines installed. What is helpful in an earthquake is that things have a little bit of wiggle room. If there's no wiggle room, then the line rupturing is probably, the risk of that is greater. And then every home should have a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide alarm. If those levels get too high, that can result in death, unfortunately. And so a lot of times you can find smoke alarms or smoke detectors that have 10-year batteries. You can install those and you don't have to worry about it for quite some time, but you'll know that if there's ever a fire, you're safe. There are also units that have both the smoke detector and the carbon monoxide detector together. So we recommend those. And then in this specific photograph, if you're living in an apartment or a more modern home, you might find that your monitors have actually been hardwired into the home. But either way, just go ahead and do a walk around your house and make sure that every room has one. Next slide, please. So you probably have heard this before. We are planners, and so of course we want everybody to plan, but it really is so helpful. Specifically, as an individual trying to prepare your home and your household, an evacuation plan is going to come in handy. And when you're trying to find and figure out multiple ways outside of your home, it's probably really important that you write that down and practice your plan. And if you'll notice there, it doesn't just stop with knowing how to get out of your house. Make sure you go a couple steps further and have meeting places established outside. So once you and your family have evacuated your house, you know where you're supposed to meet up. I would recommend, and as we put it on this slide, have a couple of ways outside of the house in case, again, there's an earthquake. Furniture maybe that wasn't fastened or was fastened but didn't hold, maybe that's fallen and obstructed your way out. You probably want to have a secondary exit, and that could be a window, it could be another door. It really is whatever you feel comfortable with, but just making sure that you have a couple of different pathways identified should help you if you needed to get out in a hurry. Next slide. Other plans that you might consider developing for yourself also include contact plans or communications plans. We really want to stress the importance of being able to contact people in an emergency and being able to communicate. Information is something that is really, really helpful. So knowing who has it and how to get it from them and being able to maintain communication with them is going to be really important. I keep going back to the earthquake because those are just all of my, ready to go examples. But in the event of a large scale disaster like that, there's a possibility that communication lines are going to be down. So you might not be able to make calls to people in the immediate area. So what we recommend is that you establish some out of area contacts. For example, if you have family on the other side of the country, grandfather, grandmother, whoever, try to get a message to them and try to make a plan for everyone else to check in with them. What's going on there is that they're outside of the affected area, so calls to and from them are probably going to go through. Whereas if you're trying to call somebody who's in the exact same area, everybody who's been impacted is also trying to make those same calls. And so you can kind of use that person to start like a phone tree, or at least just be the central point of holding information. So let's say, you have one person at work, one person at school, and the other person at home, and you all feel this and experience this. You all evacuate and go different places. You need to now check in with one another and say, hey, I'll meet you at our designated meeting point at so-and-so time. You can give that out of area contact that information. And so everyone who checks in with that out of area contact can relay or can get that same update. And then finally, hopefully, if all goes well, you'll be reunited in no time. That's an optimistic plan, but I think that should help you. Another tip actually that I learned in this job is by simply just changing your voicemail. It's almost like a Facebook check-in. If you just know how to change your voicemail, maybe you can't actually get a call out, but when people call you and it goes straight to voicemail, what they hear on that greeting is an update from you that says something maybe like you're safe and you'll meet them at the local Safeway or grocery store, at a certain time, and you follow that plan, and then you guys can meet up. But if you know how to change your voicemail, that might be a good way just to let people know that you're okay and that you are ready to take the next steps to recovery. Next slide, please. We always talk a lot about building emergency kits. There are different kinds of kits, different kits that are more appropriate for different places. But generally, the concept is the same. Make sure you have the things that you need in an emergency. And so some of the items that we recommend are along the lines of tools. You might be needing to MacGyver some things immediately after a disaster. And so having a multi-tool could be helpful. Duct tape is really, really helpful for a lot of things. Making sure that you have flashlights and extra batteries for those flashlights. food and water, non-perishable goods. It's going to be really, really helpful. Water, emergency survival blankets, just the things that you want to think about, things that could make you more comfortable in case you have to evacuate and go to a shelter. Or if you are, putting together an emergency supply kit because you plan to shelter in place or stay where you are, you want to make sure that you have things in that kit so that you can further secure your house. So something else that we kind of recommend is just having buckets and extra garbage bags for waste and sanitation, because some of those systems that we would typically come to rely on day to day, they might not be available, or they might be disrupted immediately following an earthquake or some other major disaster. Next slide. Go bags are similar to emergency kits or emergency packs, but go bags are just the way they sound. They're free to take and go. They're on the road with that. So in the go bags, you might not want heavy tools and things like that because it's going to be really hard to lift. We also, try to just think about the container that some of these items are in. If you're creating a stay kit, you don't necessarily need to lift that and lug it somewhere. Whereas a go bag, a small duffel bag, or a backpack is probably your best bet, because you're going to want to get that and go. And depending on who you care for, you might have other things that you need to carry. So in this pack, we recommend, again, making sure that you have some kind of food and water. It might be a while and you might need a snack before you get to your next point of respite. But we should also, include in there toiletries, again, things to be comfortable. If you're taking a go bag, chances are you're not going to be able to go back to where you were, where you used to store it. So making sure that you have your toiletries, an extra pair of clothes. You don't know exactly how long you're going to be out or away from your home base. So having some vital documentation, I think, is going to be really helpful for you all. Cash in small denominations. And the reason why we recommend the small denominations is because a lot of times payment systems are down and people can't make change. And something that might cost you $5.67, you only have a 20, you're not going to get change for that, and you run through your emergency cash a lot faster. Medicine is a really, really, really big one. You should be able to ask your healthcare provider for enough medicine to hold you over in an emergency. Everyone will be different, of course, depending on what's going on and what you need. But it's definitely a conversation that I would recommend asking for that, and just let them know, hey, I'm trying to build my emergency go bag, and these are medications that I really can't go a day without. Is there potential for you to give me some extra so that I can include it in my kit? But you don't want to be without that. Anything that's going to keep you going and keep you safe and healthy, you want to make sure you have in that bag. And the other thing to consider is other people, again, that you care for. You might need to have multiple bags, or you might need to designate someone else in your household who's going to be responsible for grabbing the bags of other people. If you have pets, consider a go bag for them, extra food, carriers, leashes. Maybe if you have a dog who is anxious, you might want to get muzzles, things like that, just to make sure that everybody's got kind of what they need to make it through this difficult time. We also, like I said, there's a bunch of different places that are appropriate for go bags, but at minimum, if you can, have one at your workplace, have one in your vehicle, and definitely have one in a closet at home that's easy to access. That should help you a little bit. Next slide, please. And so finally, I think we tried to just stress, ask as many questions as you can. If you can familiarize yourself with the programs and the trainings and the plans that your jurisdiction already has for you, you're one step ahead of the game. And once you get in touch with those folks, don't hesitate to provide them feedback on their plans, provide them feedback on their programs, and ask as many questions as you can. For us, the spirit of volunteerism is what we rely on in Oakland and California, and that's how we build community. So we try to encourage everyone in the community to take any of these trainings with us. And even if you don't necessarily want to go back to help your community, you helping yourself is already the biggest thing that you can do. What's going to happen is first responders are going to be likely very overwhelmed. And so the more that you can do for yourself, you're already a great help. If you can do a little bit more to help someone else, even better. So if you have any questions, or you need to, just understand some things, reach out to your local emergency managers or emergency management team, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to support you.
Whew. Wow, thank you both so much. I thought that I was prepared, but after your presentation, I realized that there are definitely some things that I can add to my to-go bag, and actually making an additional to-go bag for my car. I used to carry one in my car, but given the state of car break-ins, I've taken it out. So this is a reminder to maybe think about putting it back in. So thank you both for that. That was amazing. A lot of great information. And again, for those of you who may not live in Alameda County, they gave you some great kind of keywords to go into a search engine, to look in the search engine for plans and information in whatever city or county you might be living in. So thank you both, Kyle. And Kyle, I apologize. I said your last name wrong on the introduction, so I do apologize for that. And thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Brianna. Let's see. Any questions? I'm looking. I think there's just a lot of people like, wow, wow. So there is one question. I don't see it. What is it?
There is the one question on heavy furniture securing.
Oh, okay, great. You guys are better than me. What's the question?
So the question from Annette is there an alternative to securing heavy furniture if you live in an apartment where you aren't allowed to drill holes? This is an amazing question. I'm really happy that you asked this. So the first thing is you can stabilize furniture by making sure heavy items are on the bottom. Lowering the center of gravity is always going to make it a more stable item. But what I'm going to say is that is definitively not a perfect solution. If you have a tall bookcase or something and it is a major earthquake, it is likely coming down unless it has a very simple one screw strap that goes into a stud. My recommendation is talking to your landlord and letting them know that you want to put this in for earthquake safety. If this is for a bookcase or a piece of furniture, you do need to abide by your lease, and if you leave holes in the wall, you can be charged for that at the end. So make sure that you're abiding and understand that if you leave a hole, they have the ability to charge for it. But landlords are generally pretty okay if there's a hole or two tying a single piece of furniture. What they are not allowed to, if they have any pushback against securing a water heater or gas device, that is against California construction code. So if you do have a water heater that is being held up and it is not strapped to a stud or a beam and you want that secured, that is something that there's no wiggle room on it. That is California building code for it to be secured. It is a massive hazard to have a gas appliance unsecured during an earthquake. But furniture, you really do have to play with your landlord on that, unfortunately. And talk with them. I've never met a landlord that didn't. I know that there are some that that might have some objections, but know that at the end of the day, all they can charge you for is a hole in the wall. And if there is an earthquake and a bookshelf comes down on you, that is a much bigger expense.
Great point. Great point. I have a question about fire safes. Do you recommend having a fire safe in your home?
Sure, but don't use it as an end-all be-all. We have found plenty of fire safes when I was working for the state after wildfires that had ash on the inside of them. So never, it is not a fireproof safe. Every single fireproof safe is a fire-resistant safe. My recommendation on documents is actually having them on a either secured flash drive, so something that is password protected, or if you have a secure cloud service, that works well for you. But know that there's no real safe that is completely fireproof, especially when you're talking about residential construction. Those fires can be absolutely scorchingly hot, and there's not much that can prevent and safeguard against that.
Great, thank you. All right, are you all seeing any more questions?
I'm not seeing any more questions in there. But if you do have questions, our contact information was there at the end. Please, we can put that core contact in the chat for folks. If you do have questions or you can't find the information that we're saying should be readily available, please reach out to us. We're happy to try to provide some response and get you in contact with your local emergency management. We're disaster nerds. This is what we live for. We want to help you be prepared. We want to help you get safe and make sure that when we do have that catastrophic emergency, we're saving lives and we're making sure people come out of it on the other end.
Awesome. Well, thank you again both so much, Brianna Horton and Kyle Tremblay. I'm saying it right, Tremblay? Thank you both for being on Talking with Dr. Donna, being a part of the Generational Health Network. And thank you for your time this evening and all of this great information. Just a reminder, if you want to get more training, like this was just the tip of the training, please reach out and let them know, and then you can be involved and get further training, not just for yourself, but become CERT trained. We're going to take my church through CERT training and make sure that we're a part of making sure that our community is safe. So thank you both and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, so we have, that was great information, right? I hope you were all paying attention and that you're writing, took some notes, took some pictures, screenshots, because we really need to make sure that we are safe in our community because a disaster is inevitable, right? Especially where we live. So, as you know, we always have a food of the month, and so it's no different. We have a food of the month this month, and even though this is our last show of the season, I want you to continue finding ways to incorporate our food of the month into your diet this month, particularly because our food this month, which is ginger, is great for helping to keep you healthy and helping to keep those viruses away. So many different viruses are out there lingering in the community, and taking a little shot of ginger or some peeled ginger, adding it to your food, not only helps with your digestion and your immunity, but also really helps to alleviate if you have nausea or upset stomach. I do ginger and turmeric together every morning. It really gives me a boost of energy, as well as helping to prevent me from getting sick from all these colds and viruses. So find some ways to incorporate ginger this month. Different way to use it. You can put it into some chocolate, put it on a grilled fish and some soup in your chicken. Add zing to some creme brulee, yum yum. So all types of different ways. Throw it into your smoothies, all sorts of things. Okay, so don't forget our food of the month is ginger. Find some ways to incorporate it into your diet. All right, so with our final episode of Talking with Dr. Donna, since we started around COVID updates, it's only fitting that we circle back around, and as we end 2023, we just kind of check in to where we are with COVID. So let me give you some updates about where we are. COVID is still around. It's still causing deaths and it's still causing infections. So you may have been talking to friends and family and say, gosh, you're still getting COVID? Yes, people are still getting COVID. And the reason why that is still relevant is because what we knew about COVID and didn't know about COVID today is very similar than 3 years ago when we first started to hear this word COVID. It is unknown about the long-lasting impacts of having COVID. We still have people who get COVID and are suffering from long COVID. So the precautions are still really important because the disease is the same. It has not changed. And what it is able to do has not changed. So there's about 51 deaths in Alameda County so far this year. Thankfully, that's way lower than we used to have. But the point is that it is still causing deaths in our community. And if you can make this slide a little bit larger, just, yes, you'll see that we still, African Americans, are still right up there with who's getting COVID more often and who's dying from COVID more often. So we in particular need to make sure we pay attention to COVID. When you look at like kind of the rates of what's happening, not just here in Alameda County, go to the next slide, looking across the nation, that COVID-19 is across the entire United States. And we had a little plateauing where we weren't going up, but now we're starting to rise, which makes sense. We're hitting the winter, we're getting hit with not only COVID, but other respiratory viruses, still have RSV lingering out there, flu is lingering, and there's other viruses that are out there as well. So with that uptick, we're going to see an uptick in COVID, and that's going to cause an uptick in our number of people in the hospital and the number of people who continue to die from this virus. So the keys are the things that we were doing 3 years ago to help to prevent COVID are the things that we need to still do now. I know a lot of people are not getting this vaccine, the new vaccine. I recommend you get the new vaccine. I recommend you get the flu vaccine. I recommend that if you're feeling sick, that you test to make sure it's not COVID. And because it's still contagious, it's still going to spread to folks if you have COVID. If you need to find out where you can get these next vaccine, the new vaccine, here's the vaccines.gov. We'll show you where you can go to get a vaccine. And if you have any questions here in Alameda County, you can call the community support line for assistance. In terms of masking, I still recommend if you're going into a space where you are in a enclosed space, I recommend you wear a mask, particularly if there's a number of people around you. Okay, so that's where we are, full circle, 3 years going strong, and what we're talking about here with Talking with Dr. Donna, lots of information, and we really have been here for you to give you information. We plan to continue to be with you to give you information to make sure we end the cycle of premature death in our community. So remember, you don't get any charge for this appointment, but there are 2 asks that we ask of you. Number 1 is share this information. It can be life-changing and life-saving for people in your circle. Share this information about how to get prepared in case of an emergency. Share this channel with your friends and family. Maybe they've never seen Talking with Dr. Donna. We have lots of episodes on lots of different things, so please do share this channel. And finally, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that bell icon so that you know when we do go live. So this is our last episode for this year. We thank you for keeping your appointment every Thursday. We wish you and your family happy, safe, wonderful holidays. And team, come show your faces as we say goodbye. Come on, team. So Elisita unfortunately had to leave the studio, but we want to say Elwood on the camera, like Mike on the mic, 1, 2. Donnell, come on, Donnell. Hey, Donnell's doing the slides. Come on, Bridget. That's Bridget in a mask. Y'all see, we talk it like we walk. Oh, Annette is still here. And Annette, come on, Annette. Yay. Give a wave. That is everybody except Elisita, who unfortunately had to leave to go do something else on our Talking and Dr. Donna team, and Brother Owen. Thank you and Owen. So Owen and Elisita, you'll have to we'll have to put you on a slide or something. All right, thank you so much for tuning in and keeping your appointment tonight. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy, prosperous, blessed, and healthy New Year. We'll see you next year. On Talking with Dr. Donna, we focus on 4 pillars of health to help build a generational health network to end the cycle of premature death in the Black community. I created Talking with Dr. Donna as a way to educate as many people as possible and give accurate information from a trusted physician. Go to Talking with Dr. Donna and get accurate information. And then share that information with your family and friends. And if you like what you see, like my channel and subscribe. Remember, every Thursday, keep your appointment with Dr.